Welcome to this tutorial where we will talk about the concept of references within Insight and how you can use references to visualize relationships between object types and objects. We briefly covered references in our previous tutorials, but for a quick recap, let's look at an example. First, we have references between software and computers, which tell us what software is installed on any selected computer. Another example is when a user is based at a particular location, there is a reference between users and locations. These are two simple examples of references. To understand more complex object relationships, it can be helpful to visualize the references. In Insight, there are three types of graphs that we can view to visualize references. First is the object schema graph, which shows the references between all object types in the schema. Second is the object type graph, which shows the references to and from the selected object type. And the third one is the object graph, which shows us the references for that selected object. For the object graph, we can toggle between a tree graph and a force graph. All users that have access to the schema can view all three types of graphs. Now let's view the graphs one by one to see the differences. We start by navigating to the ITSM schema in Insight. Because this is one of our recently viewed schema, we can access it directly from the Insight main menu. If we don't see it as a recent schema, we can go to the Insight Object Schemas and find the schema we want to open. Let's first look at the object schema graph. From the top row of buttons, select Graph. The object schema graph shows all the object types in the schema and the references that exist between them, which are represented by arrows. The graph moves around as we move the cursor over it, but we can freeze it at any time by clicking on the lock icon. When we have locked the graph, we can move each object type around to visualize the references. By clicking on an object type in the graph, we see on the right-hand side the attributes for the selected object type and what kind of values are expected for each attribute. Let's select the business service as an example. Here you can see all the attributes we are storing about the business services, which is quite a few. Then if we select the business service importance, we see just a few attributes. Now let's move over to the object type graph. To access that, we need to go back to the overview. When back in the overview of the schema, we have another graph button, which is to open a graph for the selected object type. The graph is similar to the object schema graph, but it only shows the selected object type and its references. Like before, we can see details about the object type attributes on the right-hand side by selecting an object type from the graph. Let's move on to the third graph. The object graph is probably the most commonly used graph, because when working with Insight as a user or as an agent in Jira Service Desk, we are primarily working with objects. Let's take a look at an example of this. Here we have an incident stating that Confluence is not responding, with a link to the Confluence object. Linking objects to Jira issues provide more information about the issue, which helps it be resolved faster. The Insight custom fields in Jira are really powerful, as they can display rich data about the selected object. However, we can get even more details by viewing the object graph. We click on the Confluence object to visualize all its references, where we can drill down to see if other objects are affected. In the object graph view, we can toggle between the force graph and tree graph. When we are in the tree graph, we can click our way through to explore. In this case, we are viewing the Confluence object. We can double-click on the host attribute to expand the graph and see the underlying hosts. In this case, we have two hosts, one for application and one for the database. If we double-click on the business services running on the database server, we will see that there are two business services running on that host, Confluence and video conferencing. Let's imagine that we, as an agent, have checked the service and found out that the database server needs restarting. From here, we can easily navigate to the server object to check what other services might be affected by the restart and notify the right people before moving forward. All of the graphs that we have seen in this video exist because we have references between object types and objects, which represent relationships between assets in the business. These graphs can be tremendous help when visualizing references and dependencies. The way the references are configured is entirely customizable. The data modeling and configuration of references is done by the Object Schema Manager or the Insight admin after the schema has been created. Thank you for watching.